Give me a break. Why don't you challenge again?
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to
SUPERJUMP.
Give me a break.
How about now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. Huh.
Okay, perfect.
It's like one headphone, one headset. It interprets it as like 6 different ones. I have to just choose the right one.
I see. I'm on my phone today, but it should be fine. I think my headset is good enough for it.
Yeah, it's much better than mine, listening back to it.
Good. Juno's here. Are we going to have anyone else today, or?
Just whoever. It's just right. The nice thing about Spaces is, like I said, you just punch it in and it like downloads it automatically.
Yeah.
So I could like just upload it the next night.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
I'm testing. I'm testing. Hello.
You're good.
We can hear you, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
So
all right.
yeah, it's like pretty balanced. You know, one episode I'm on phone. Next episode you're on the phone. It's good.
Yeah. No, we have our yin and our yang for sure. Crazy turn of events over the past few days with the release of the Tokon beta and Avatar as well.
Yeah.
Although it's less talked about.
There's actually a lot to talk about. It's I wish I had more like information, more feedback from people, but I guess let's start with Tokon. Sony, stick to making cameras.
Actually, though.
So Arxis is not at fault this time, I don't think.
Yeah.
The game is a million times better than I expected it to be. I had such high hopes for Dubers, DBFZ. I had insane hope, man. I just couldn't do it. I just like I couldn't keep playing that game. It'd be like lying to myself.
Right.
And Strive, you know, like the less said about that. But this is like much better than I thought it would be.
Okay.
And the best, I did play it. I actually, well, I'll get to this later about like the PC specs and all that, but it's like limited, yeah. Can you call it a Marvel game? Not in the traditional sense at all, besides the fact that it uses the IP. Is it like a decent game? I think it could be. I do think like people have a lot of hopium for this game, like an insane amount of hopium for this game. And I guess maybe rightfully so, because, dude, like on launch, Arc System Works games, they always have something that stands out that's like broken. Like, remember Launch Soul, right?
In Strive?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Launch Soul, like Android 16 on launch. What else? Well, I don't know. I mean, you're asking me to like name things that happened like 6 years ago.
No, I get it though, because like Arxis games, when they first come out, there's usually something that's like immediately and pretty clearly good, even if it may not be the best thing in the game.
Right. So off the bat, I think like people are immediately gravitating towards Blade and Magic. I do think Spidey has stood out to be the best so far, according to like top players at least. Just like in like passing, they've like mentioned this. Is like, yeah, like I think Spidey's good. Um, the game does have active tag, and it's like people want to open each other up with active tag, and it's like, yeah, it's not working, and it's like kind of a good thing, but then it's also like, why have a tag game?
Yeah, I have heard a handful of people say that like this is a 1v1 game trapped inside of a tagged fighter. Um, and I kind of get that impression as someone who hasn't played it yet.
Have you seen anything like really broken yet?
No, 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 no,
No.
not at all.
Yeah,
If
it
there
seems like
is,
a balanced like Marvel game, which is
it's
kind of odd
dude,
to me.
it's insane. It's insane how like the stuff people are posting is like stuff every other character can do. Nothing is like that incredibly oppressive either. So it's like, oh man, this isn't the 1v1 game, or rather the single player game that I wanted.
So you're saying it's unusually interactive for a tag fighter.
Yes, but the problem with it being a tag fighter is like the way the assists work. Honestly, that's like the worst aspect of it. So basically, like every character's assist functions almost the same when like they're active, right? So like let's say I'm in a combo, you'll see this all the time. There will be jump H ender, and then you use your assist call to keep the combo going, right? Every character basically gets like a continuation. It's like the strive tumble effect.
Mm-hmm.
So like the game's a little limited, but it's gonna end up being more about combo optimization in like really minimal aspects. One thing that does kind of suck about Tokon is it does have like the strive, the dubers kind of neutral, where it's like I'm gonna swing. I'm just gonna use like a forward moving normal, and it's like, yeah, but this is like gonna be all games moving forward. So, all right.
I mean, so my thing is like I always feel we kind of got robbed of like what Marvel vs. Capcom was supposed to be, because I feel like the intent behind the Marvel games initially was to have games that used verticality and kind of let players bounce off of each other a lot and kind of reset back to that. Obviously, that's not how Marvel games actually play at high level, right? And I think with Marvel 2, they kind of leaned more into that because they were just kind of like, screw it, like we're not going to be able to really test this game anyways. And that just kind of became the Marvel formula. Would you say Tokon is kind of more in line with what I described?
Maybe when it comes to neutral, but like I actually it's kind of too early to tell because it does have this mechanic that's like people are really underutilizing mechanics and like not even week one in like a beta. We'll say this though, uh my Steam friends list Friday and Saturday, just like everybody's playing the beta, right? Like people like the servers are down and people were still trying to play the beta. They were just like clicking like refresh, refresh, refresh,
That's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
And I have a lot of top players on my Steam friends list. I'm not going to say who is trying to, get in the servers, right? But today is the last day, and I don't know, man. It was like nobody's playing it anymore.
I see everybody on Avatar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people were like, okay, I just want like the game to come out. Maybe I don't know. People have like a lot of hopium, but it's fine because this game's like pretty fair so far and balanced.
I feel
Well, I was
like
gonna say maybe the elephant in the room is that they're getting tired of wrestling with the game to get it to run.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, go ahead.
I guess it's like I feel like there's kind of a there's too many games that are kind of releasing that are sort of similar in like a way. Like anime-ish, tag-ish fighter. And they have like one beta and like the next, and they're gonna like kind of release around the same time, and it's just sort of
Well, the nice thing about Tokon being backed by Sony is that they see a game like Avatar and they could say, "Fuck you, we're gonna release." Oh, your game came out. Fuck you, we're gonna release the beta and like fuck up your release.
Yeah.
That is one of the nice things about Sony money. Another nice thing about Sony money is that, I mean, the game like is stylized, looks pretty damn good actually.
It does look good.
The worst part about Sony money is the fact that they have to adhere to Sony rules. So a lot of people have been struggling to run the game, right? I don't know. I think I'm on the 3060 or something. My PC's like 5 years old, and I don't know. I didn't have any problems running it. It took some time for the shaders to, get going. That's any new game on launch, sure. And Tokon's not optimized, right? It's not optimized at all. The game comes out, I think, next week. This is not a good look. This is kind of embarrassing. The server's going down, also embarrassing for Sony. But I will say, like, let's chalk it up to the FGC just being kind of retarded when it comes to computers.
So I think that could very much be a role. I have heard some reports of some pretty high-end systems struggling to run the game, though, and that's pretty concerning. I mean, I've heard people who have like decent builds from the past 2 years saying that the game stutters. I've even seen reports of the PS5 version stuttering offline too. So I don't think it's just a PC thing, just based off of that. And I feel like the game is probably a little bit undercooked to be at the point that it is in its release cycle. It's really, really bad though for fighting games, because I've said this to you before, I know, but like, this is not a genre that gets patched into relevancy. A fighting game does not take off at year 2 because of a good patch that fixes all the problems. Like that doesn't happen. Like, launch is where you determine how many people are going to keep playing after the first 2 months. Like this is it, right? You can't afford to stumble out the gate.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what appears to be happening right now.
Fighting games always start off big and then they have a dip a month later.
So check out this tweet I posted on the Jumbotron on the I mean, you're on phone and you're probably driving, so don't do that. But I'll describe it for the viewers at home. It's somebody checking their task manager, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 instances of PlayStation PC SDK runtime. Like,
that is
what are we doing here?
devious work. Yeah.
Anti-cheat and all that. And it's like, you guys want fighting games to be esports. I mean, this is kind of what happens.
Yeah, buddy.
But is it really though? Because how many other genres, right, will launch on PC in such a suboptimal state out the door?
It's not. Let's like not say it's launching on PC. Let's say it's like launching on PlayStation, and then like PC is just something else. Because if they had their way, it would not come out on, PC at all.
I mean, yes,
If
that's
Sony
true.
had their way, yeah.
That is true. But I mean, it's a big enough market that even they can't afford to ignore it. And they need to take it more seriously. It's one of those things, if it's worth doing at all, it's worth doing right. And if they're not going to do it right, I think it just does more harm than good. It would actually be better for the game to just be PS5 exclusive than to be like this.
Will this really affect sales? I mean, I am not going to buy it because of it. I'm going to wait. Maybe. Well, first of all, let's talk about this, right? The game's not even out yet, and they're showing DLC for it. This has to stop.
Yeah.
This has to stop.
Yeah, people today try to say, oh, like if Tekken Cross Street Fighter or Street Fighter Cross Tekken happened today, people wouldn't even care. I think that was kind of true until recently. I think people are coming full circle again, and they're starting to be like, hey, could we like release a game in a somewhat complete state, like on release, and not immediately start drip feeding new content before anyone even has the game in their hands?
No, never.
Yeah, this is like the worst thing. And I like briefly want to mention this because it's like look at like any new game that's been coming out. A DLC character has to be like a top tier character because it's like people aren't gonna buy them. I don't think that's so much the case with 6, surprisingly.
Yeah,
But
Ingrid
I mean,
wasn't.
but like let's not forget like Mai was like they're like okay, so this character had their time in the sun, and now let's like stop fucking around. But City of the Wolves has Mr. Karate, and it just had a patch, right? And they actually kind of like buffed him. They like nerfed something, and they just buffed the character. So the game had another really weird nerf with Hakuto Maru, and I'm gonna compare this. I'm gonna tie this all together. So SNK's design philosophy with KOF 15, it just had a big patch. Started playing it again. Not that impressed. It's pretty much the same game, but like balance changed a bunch. So a bunch of the characters that were just like top tier, they just stayed the same. Honestly, man. Rio is still super good.
I cannot
Yashiro,
believe Rio.
yeah, Rio's insane.
His
Yashiro,
routes.
Orochi Yashiro, yeah, like he just has like why does he get
Like
this? It's like
everything goes into everything.
so. This is their design philosophy. Is like, well, the character's good and like they fit our idea of how the game should play. So we're just like gonna keep them good. You know, even if they're like being picked all the time, if they're in every match, they're fine with it. And a few other characters got like they got buffed a little bit. Characters that like do not fit their vision at all are the characters that are going to get nerfed. And this kind of like core A gaming, like, oh, don't nerf, just buff. Like, dude, we have to let that go.
I don't ever like being put in the precarious position of defending Core A gaming, but I do think his point in that video was largely misunderstood. Even
Yeah.
if he may not have done himself any favors with that. I mean, the idea ultimately is like it's better for a game to like actively fight entropy through just adding stuff versus a game just like collapsing in on itself through having like nothing worth doing except for a couple things. Like that's ultimately the point I think he was getting at, but the way it was presented has done like irreparable harm to people's perception of balance in games. Like it's very unfortunate that I have to pin that on him, but I do think he was coming from a better place than a lot of people want to give him credit for with that.
All right. So TLDR on Tokon, much better than I expected. I think the hopium is justified. We'll see. Still too early to tell. Still too early to tell is going to be a running theme here on any new game. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. You know, um, I'm not being paid by Sony to say that. I definitely wouldn't shill a modern Arxis game. I'm just being honest.
And neither would I, for sure.
You know, I'm just pulling the band-aid off a little too fast and telling them something they don't want to hear.
Yeah, again, I haven't had a chance to play it. I haven't even had a chance to play Avatar yet, even though I have the game. But I think with Tokon right now, the big issue is just the fact that the game is not running well on a lot of people's systems. I think that's a major blemish on what should be a slam dunk launch.
So I think that's enough about Tokon. We have another fantastic. I wouldn't really call it fantastic. It's okay. It's good. Avatar Legends obviously came out. You know, that's another game that's like, you know, IP game backed by money, and it's actually rushed because they had to tie it into the movie. Does not have all the features that it's supposed to have on release. Some characters in the game have missing animations. There's some static PNGs in the game.
That's great.
That's like
Hell yeah.
that's like you know, for fighting game players, that's kind of like secondary. That's
I
you
need to
know
see
whatever. That's secondary. Whatever, doesn't matter. We're going to talk about how the game actually plays, and it is pretty damn good. Oh, speaking of what I did want to compare Tokon to is like, does it feel like every other new game where it's like EX move and then this and it's like, yeah, like it kind of does have a redundant combo system. Avatar, it's a little like that. It's refreshing to play a game that doesn't have fucking super cancels, where it's like you actually have to like get into a position to do a combo. Combos are actually pretty fun to do in Avatar. They're like really case by case, like context sensitive combos where it's like, besides resources, besides like corner positioning, you do want to make sure like, oh, like where am I going to follow up with this? What's the best way to chase them? Because the game doesn't have like static Oki. It's like Vampire Savior, Blaze Blue. It's like that.
Yeah, it actually, of the two between Tokon and Avatar looked more compelling to me. And I do co-sign that Blaze Blue or Vampire influence on the game in that regard. It definitely looks like a game where they want people to feel like getting knocked down is not instantly the end of the round. Whether or not it actually plays out that way remains to be seen. But the thing about Avatar, of course, that caught my attention before I'd even seen any footage of the game is all of the complaining about how hard it is to do things in that game, which, I mean, to me personally, that's like the biggest green flag for a fighting game at this point. Like, if people are actually complaining that, it takes, a little bit of effort to do things, I'm like, oh, we might actually be back.
In what sense though? Is it like hard, like the special moves and like what?
I think just the motion inputs in general, because I don't know if it has a 3-frame buffer or not, but I'm going to guess probably not in the conventional sense, at least. I think people are having a hard time with height adjustment in combos too, because that's not as big of a deal as it used to be in games generally.
I don't know about like just the regular inputs. It takes some getting used to. Like the problem is the hit stop. This is what's messing people up. People play new games and the hit stop is like, super fucking long. That's what people are complaining about Tokon actually. But Tokon does have some input reader issues too. Like people are showing crazy inputs and they're not getting dragon punches, which yeah, I've noticed that. Avatar's input reader is like kind of fine. It's just combos feel like you have to mash them out like it's Mortal Kombat sometimes. But it just is a fast game. That's it.
It
What's
kind of seemed
more
like
visually
Battle for the Grid.
appealing? Yeah.
Like I think one thing is it's specifically not more visually appealing, like in like a general sense, just because they don't have like the budget. But then it also seems like it's probably like maybe the better design game. So if you're the kind of person who wants to sit there and play like 25, 30-year-old games anyway, like you're not in it necessarily for like the cleanest, sleekest graphics, so it doesn't really matter like what the packaging is. It's kind of what's underneath. So yeah, like you said about the hanging PNGs being not so big of a deal. So like that seems kind of like it's less of a mainstream appeal kind of game, whereas I think Tokon kind of they're just trying to make
Trying to appeal to
IPs.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we got you with Marvel Rivals, now we're gonna get you with this, and
So yeah, people wondering if Avatar will have staying power. Like it'll have staying power in the sense that there's still some Skullgirls tournaments to this day. Like people just like specific things and they won't let them go. Avatar really is. It's like it's not. It is an IP game, but it's. I don't think the people that don't play fighting games will stick with this at all. People that
it's not for Avatar fans.
yeah, the people that play fighting games are definitely going to stick with this. It is a game that would be perfect. Um, Like playing it offline, just turn your brain off. First to 100 sets to learn matchups. Perfect game for that. Like instant, super fast. I mean, it's like it's like a 1 credit game. You know what I mean? Like if it was in arcades, it would only cost 1 credit.
And actually, isn't it in arcades? Because I remember seeing location test photos of that game in Japan.
Is it 1 credit?
I don't know. I've just seen some photos.
Yeah. So I did watch some footage yesterday of a tournament from here actually at Next Level. Maybe one day I'll go back to Next Level. I'll be like Odysseus returning to Ithaca. You know, except this time I'll just be a beggar.
Yeah. Oh, go. You're good. You're good.
Play this over Tokon. I'm looking at footage right now. I actually kind of like how it looks and how it flows.
Yeah, if you gave it a chance, I mean, if you could, if you could actually like run in and play it, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. I don't think you'd be like, yeah, I'm maining Tokon. I'm going to tournaments for Tokon, obviously, but you're definitely going to be like, oh, this is kind of like pleasant. I'm surprised it's not shit. I mean, and that kind of says something about how low the bar is, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it does also maybe speak to kind of a natural correction because I mean, I remember Street Fighter 6 came out and there was kind of an unusual level of optimism associated with the launch of that game. And it wasn't entirely unfounded, right? Because, like, the game actually ran well on PC. The net code was really good. It got a lot of things right out the gate, which is what fighting games need to succeed. And if there's a lesson to take away from Street Fighter 6, it's that you need a game to launch in a state that is perfectly playable and people aren't, wrestling with the game to get it to run or, having to prune through people online to find the few people that can actually get good games with. Like, that shouldn't be a thing, right? It should be like every other game on your PC where you start it up and you play it and you can just get games instantly and you don't have to worry about how awful the connection is going to be or whatever, right? Like, Street Fighter 6 knocked that out of the park. Unfortunately, I think other aspects of the game over time, people have kind of come to realize, like, maybe not the best idea to build a zero-sum resource management game from round start in Street Fighter, among other things. But I feel like we're sort of turning the corner, but the problem with this genre is that how many times have we made one step forward and then 2 steps back? Like, how many times in the past decade has that happened?
I don't
It's
think you
hard.
can rely on a product to fix the problems. I think it requires like actual like person to person, like the way that you engage your community and the way that you kind of like bring in and onboard new blood, so to speak, with like giving them enough freedom to like be themselves, but at the same time giving them structure to sort of like fill in the gaps. I feel like it does not matter what game you pick. Like, it's 100% just how you structure it.
Ideally, I would agree with you, but the fact of the matter is that the FGC is, in essence, an institution, and it's organized with Street Fighter at the top, and it's been that way for at least 15 years now. I don't. It's not to the extent of, like, as Street Fighter goes, fighting games go, but I would say it's like only a degree or two removed from that. Like, if SF6 tanked, I don't think we'd have all the games we're getting right now. I'll say that much. But SF6's success does not guarantee that other games will do what SF6 did right either.
So for me,
So
it's like, again, you can't rely on a product. Like, because SF6 only can do what SF6 can only do what Street Fighter 6 does as like a consumer product. It's like everything else, like, yeah, there's a certain degree to which like they can invest money like esports wise, and then there's like obviously other things like there's anime and shit like that, where there's like multiple tie-ins. But like, if you look at like what they do with Japan, it's again, there's more of like a community aspect, and I don't feel like that's like present over here because I feel like we're too reliant on sort of learned helplessness for like the publisher or the developer or to make this product that's just gonna, suddenly make everything make sense. And I don't think that type of like serendipitous epiphany is you know reality. I think it's not a matter of waiting for the magic product that comes that fixes the FCC, because it's about what motivates the people to actually connect with each other and create that system, like create a system within the system. You want to talk about like institution, sure, but that's going to vary from like region to region as well. So for our region, I don't think, like, I think we're too reliant on the publisher, the product, the consumer corporation dynamic, and less interested in kind of like how we can reach each other.
So I actually wanted to talk about how like the FGC basically revolves around Street Fighter on like the actual first episode.
Hmm.
I think that's something, just gather your thoughts and theories and save it for that, because that is definitely a sentiment that people have held onto for like, I guess since five they've noticed it, rightfully so. But anything else about Avatar and Tokon? I will say this though. I think the crossplay for Tokon, funny enough, is straight up fucking broken. Where it's like, what's the point of me making a PSN account?
I have no idea what's going on with that. I don't understand at all why a PC game would require a PSN account. I can't think of one reason why that would be needed.
Well, wait a second. They're doing that with Tokon? I didn't realize that. They tried to do that with Helldivers too, didn't they?
I seem to recall hearing that with Helldivers too,
Yeah.
but
You remember?
yeah, but like, and not to excuse it for another camp, but it makes a little bit more sense. Like with certain games that are like crossplay between Xbox and PC, especially if it's a game that's like on the Microsoft Store specifically, like Killer Instinct, I think requires you to tie to your Xbox account. Still annoying, still not something I want to deal with, but at least there, even if it's like not the best justification, at least there is some shared infrastructure there that kind of justifies it. With this, I mean, you just have to call it what it is. It's just Sony shoving their nose where it doesn't belong. There's so many games you can do crossplay between PC and console on that do not require you to use a Sony or Microsoft account. Like this shouldn't be normalized, and I don't understand why they're pushing it. It's actually more work for them too, but I'm sure there's a reason that I just can't think of right now.
Arbitrary Japanese bullshit is usually what I chalk stuff like that up to.
That might be a more plausible explanation than anyone here wants to admit, but I think ultimately it has to be helping their bottom line in some way. It's just I haven't really looked into it like that.
I mean, there's games like Phantasy Star Online and like Final Fantasy 11, and like the Japanese game design really comes through where it's like there's just like a gap in like the UI and design. It's like, why is this so arbitrarily like troublesome? Why do I have to have a Play Online account and then also like an extra fucking Square Enix account and yada yada yada? And to me, that just seems like fucking Nintendo does that shit too, to like a different degree. But
Hey, so I've got a great idea that Sony can do instead of making games, even though like gaming makes up, I don't know, like half of their profit, right? It's something like that. It's scary actually. Their only competition is Nintendo. You know, it's something they could do. I heard that IMAX, right, isn't in Japan. Japan doesn't have a single way to show IMAX.
I
You
don't.
know, no, they don't actually. I have a friend that lives in Japan and like said that he's like a huge Christopher Nolan fan, and it's like, man, remember when Sony used to like go hard on making like fucked up formats nobody would ever use? Like, why don't they just reverse engineer IMAX or something?
It's an idea. I mean,
because there's no money in it.
Yeah, right. I was about to say, like, Sony or PlayStation actually does make up a disturbing amount of Sony's revenue. I mean, I don't want to say it's their only successful business sector right now, but
It's like
probably
40%. It's like
pretty
half.
close to it. Yeah, it's pretty insane.
So whenever people are complaining about it, like, no, they're just gonna like double down on it.
Yeah, and I don't want to tangent into this too much, but like the whole backlash against Sony trying to get rid of physical media, it's just one of those things where it's like, this does not really affect me personally because one, I don't own a PS5, don't want to own a PS6. Like I'm already basically checked out of all that. But also two, like I don't really do physical media with games anymore, and I haven't in a long time. I know it matters a lot to some people for different reasons, and like I don't really want to get into that. But ultimately, my point here is like Sony is not stupid, right? Like they're evil, they're not stupid. Like they know what they're doing. They've ran the numbers and they've determined that this is an acceptable risk to them, and they're willing to take it on. Make it an unacceptable risk to them. Like do one of the only things you can do as a consumer and just like literally don't consume the thing that is pushing things onto you that you don't want to accept. If you can't even do that, then you really have no right to complain at this point. Like, and that's like a broader gaming thing, of course, but I think it's true in fighting games too. It's like, if we want to show that like a game that just doesn't run on PC is not acceptable at launch, we need to like not buy games that don't run on PC at launch. Like, unfortunately, that's the only way anything might change, you know?
And when you don't like people in the FGC getting canceled for wrongful reasons, you should definitely purchase Avatar Legends. You should vote for your wallet. Vote with your wallet and buy a chud coded game.
You know, I can co-sign that.
Mike Z paid me approximately $0.00 to say that.
I think I got the deposit notification just now, actually. But yeah, what else did you want to? Did you want to talk about how fighting game players live in a bubble? Because that's kind of a good transition to that.
I do. I just wanted to talk about EWC SF6 briefly because I just wanted to mention like a few things in particular. I posted it, fucking I lost it. So Incross is probably the best user in the FGC. Incross is like doing insane work. He's like a one-man Liquipedia for the FGC. He's like tracking all the results and everything. And just like go follow him, man. But something that's super interesting about the last chance qualifiers is like I was thinking that, you know, a lot of like younger players are playing SF6 on a competitive level. And man, when I look at the Japanese players, I'm like, Itabashi, Zangief, Moke, like Fudo, like, dude, I don't know, man. Like, we have a bunch of new players. I mean, Japan has some new players too, but like, the new blood in Japan has to step up, man. What's going on?
Well, I've held a theory for a long time on why fighting games are like the only exception in all of video games where you actually do tend to get better as you get older, and that's despite the games like objectively being decently reaction intensive. And that's because ultimately what wins fighting games is not being able to outreact the other player consistently. It's really being able to avoid having to do that at all. And I think
it's the warrior mindset. It's Daigo. Daigo's just like Odysseus in the fucking in the Odyssey, dude.
Yeah, I do think though there is something to that because like in first person shooter world, you're washed at like 25. You know, like you actually just can't compete anymore. Like you can still be good at the game, but you can't be world class anymore. Like you get outgunned too frequently. I feel like RTS are kind of in a similar boat where like you end up just getting smoked past a certain threshold of just not being able to keep up anymore. But with fighting games, historically speaking, it's proven to be the exact opposite. And I think that's why. I think ultimately, if you are just a smarter player with a better sense of, which ranges are best to play at, you can avoid having to deal with that altogether, and you can just let the other player hang themselves. And that's something that, I mean, obviously, I think it exists in other games to a degree, but I think with fighting games, you get a lot of mileage out of that, even at the highest levels of play.
You can apply that to FPS too, like just
Yeah,
general
yeah,
game
yeah.
sense.
No,
Like
absolutely. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in other games, but I think in FPS, like, there always comes a point where you just have to be able to outgun the other person. Like, even if it isn't all the time, like it's enough that it creates a gap consistently at the top level of play that creates something of an age barrier that I just don't think exists in fighting games in a meaningful capacity.
I mean, yeah, just like look at any pro CS like team photo, and it's like nobody has any facial hair.
Huh.
I don't think they have pubic hair either.
I feel like fighting games in general reward you for experience more than just like Twitch reaction. So I think that's the big thing with like fighting games is like if you're fighting somebody, playing somebody who's like, 15, 20, something like that, and you've literally been like doing Hadoken, oh, they jumped, I'm gonna, DP since fucking they were born. Like, twice as long as they've been live, it kind of, I think, there's a bit of like a skill or experience gap. Like you really kind of do get that analogy of that sort of like Pai Mei, like old hermit master that just can like sit there, just knows everything you want to do, and just is like, no, 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 no. And I think fighting games allow you to do that a lot better, even when they do change, like to make the game easier. They'll like raise the floor, but the ceiling still stays the same. If because like your defensive Yomi is really what separates people who like make it out of pools versus people who win championships, in my opinion. So I think defensive Yomi is the thing that mitigates in all games the opponent's ability to get started. And when they do get started, it's like how good are you at kind of just detaching from the moment and just playing rock paper scissors. And yeah, I think you only get better with that skill over time.
Yeah, I do think, like, I pretty much co-sign all of that. I do think there is an element to fighting games that most other multiplayer video games don't quite lean into as hard. And like to Juno's point, like, yes, absolutely, in FPS you can play around that. Like that's half the reason I like Rainbow Six Siege as much as I do, is that I don't have to be, a cracked out Adderall 17-year-old to be good at that game. Like I can just play utility, I can play angles, I can play passive. Will I be able to beat the best players in the world consistently? No. But if I have someone like that on my team, I can enable them to do it even more, right? And create more asymmetry in a different way. And that's what I really like about that game. I feel like fighting games just kind of have that baked into the formula. I feel like just having a bigger bag of tricks, it just gives you a better base to build upon. And yeah, over time, you only get better at that.
Right. So what else? When does EWC 2026 for SF6 actually start? I think it would be kind of interesting. I mean, look, Japan overrepresented 13 players overall out of like what 13 out of
32?
yeah. Yeah, is that right?
Usually, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, 6 US players. Congrats to Dual Kevin. I don't know who Lex is, but he made it out of LCQ. Everybody else qualified. American players that were invited were Chris T, for his participation in SFL World Championship, obviously. And Bucci Lee, I'm not too familiar with him, but I kind of want Punk to win. I don't know. I think he's one of the more solid players to watch. Doesn't change it up very much. And he just picks a top tier.
You know, normally I'm a punker, but I also really want to see his tweets when he loses. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to bet against him here.
Well, when he loses, the tweets are kind of justified because it'll be like, "Oh God, I can't believe this tournament, has this setup." And it's usually justified, but it's funny when it's not too. And obviously the salt is really like fun and interesting.
That's the thing. When he loses, everyone else wins. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah. People are still like fans of Punk regardless, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And he knows that. That's why he's a good American representative. Well, we talked about old FGC players. Now let's talk about how FGC players are just stuck in a bubble. They're kind of oblivious to the sentiment going on regarding fighting games in general.
Yeah.
The sentiment from people that don't play fighting games, the sentiment from casual players. They know the opinions of, top players because, like, they have their heads up their asses.
They're disconnected from the base.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the opinion of the average person who doesn't play fighting games, if you ask them to play Street Fighter 6, they're going to say, there's a Street Fighter 6? There was a Street Fighter 5? There was a Street Fighter 4? Like, they're just going to keep going down the line. Like, the average gamer, which is kind of a loaded term at this point, but I think we all know what I mean by that. They've just been disconnected from fighting games for a very long time now, right? And it's going to take a lot to bring them back in. And I think I've said this before in a previous episode, but like 6 did more to bring those people in than any other game has done in like 20 years. So I'm going to give it credit for that because I think it's done a better job. I think it did a better job than SF4, like by the numbers, pretty objectively, it's done more. But it's still like not enough. It's still not enough is the problem.
I feel like the people who like are kind of stewards of the scene have to like do a role. But then I also don't feel like the people who like need to benefit from that, like the people who stand to benefit the most from that role also don't understand like how to, I think, trust the dynamic. So to me, I view it as a cultural thing, and I'll say that again over and over. Like I'll harp on that probably incessantly, but
no, and I agree broadly that like Japan doesn't really have the problems that we have over here, like in general when it comes to these games. Like I am totally with you. I'm totally with you on that. But I think you also have to be honest too that like fighting games have just occupied a different cultural space over there. People in the late 90s were still playing fighting games at their friends' houses in Japan, whereas over here we were playing, GoldenEye and Tony Hawk, and we all kind of moved on from Street Fighter.
Well, I feel like the point that people really moved on was like the death knell was Capcom Fighting Evolution. So I feel like CVS2 and Marvel 2 were still pretty popular for like quite a few years, and I feel like it didn't really fall off so much until kind of like Tekken 4 sucked until like Tekken 5 came, and then Mortal Kombat kind of just fell off too, so it didn't even have that kind of like casual fan base from that. It took them a while to like figure out with like Armageddon to even have any kind of an audience, but it wasn't like a fighting game at that point. It was just kind of like trash. But Capcom Fighting Evolution, I feel like, is really where the market kind of crashed, especially after like Capcom Fighting All Stars was supposed to be a thing, and then they like teased it forever, and then they canned it. And
I think for like the card carrying fighting game players, that's correct. I think more broadly, it happened before that. Street Fighter started the 90s as one of the most popular video games in the entire world. And it ended the 90s selling like 30,000 copies on Dreamcast. Like, there was a drop off before that. And before CFE was even a thing, there was already kind of a splintered, dedicated community for fighting games that it had already been forming since like the Usenet days, right? I think, yes, for that dedicated segment of the community, that was the first like major drop off in player interest, at least on the Capcom side of things. But like, I think for fighting games more broadly, I think that had already started. And I think what also made it worse over time was that consoles got more powerful, and so fighting games lost their visual edge that they had over other genres. I think that was a really big hit.
Yeah, I agree.
Like a major hit. Like, so this is like a chapter of fighting game history that like people don't want to admit is true, but it is. The first fighting game to be picked up by an esports organization was Dead or Alive. It was the very first one to actually be formally brought on, was DOA 3.
I had to remind somebody of that this weekend.
Yeah, no, like no one wants to admit that it's true. And then when they do, they'll try to downplay it or whatever. But like the truth of the matter is people made money playing that game. Like they actually made more money playing DOA back then than people did playing SF4 when that game first came out. Like it was a big deal in its own right. But even that, I feel like kind of siphoned for lack of a better term, the card carrying fighting game community from gaming more broadly, in a way that it didn't for games like Halo or Call of Duty. You know, those games had a pretty significant cultural presence, even though there was like a already established like esports league for them and stuff around that same time. I feel like with fighting games, they just kept trying to do what had worked up until that point for them. But because of just changing technological and cultural factors, it just stopped working. And so the only people really left playing fighting games by the time like 2005 or 6 rolls around are the people who are going to tournaments, right? Or at least going to their local arcade, which is its own topic, and how that decline kind of happened in earnest. But yeah, I feel like the solutions to the problems that we have here ideally would be, let's change the culture. But like, how do you do that? Like, where do you start?
I have a lot of opinions. Don't worry about it. Like I can tell you, I can bore the shit out of you, and I have many answers to this question. So it's not like well, what are you gonna do about it? There's nothing to. No, there's plenty of shit you can do. Trust me.
I think there's a lot of things we can try to do, and we can try to adapt. But I think ultimately we just have to remember that like we're still playing catch up.
You're trying to like justify stagnation in some way.
No, I think I'm just trying to state that we just have a different set of challenges out here when it comes to these games, and we always have. Really, like
we've actually got the same set of challenges. It's the way that we look at each problem and the way that we connect with each other over it. Like, it's the illusion of separation. It's the illusion that it's different here than it is like over there. Like the only thing that's different here that is, maybe easier access over there is the size of the country. Like everybody can like allocate to like a certain location and Tokyo or something like that, and you've got easy access. And maybe you could do that in New York to an extent, but you can't do that in California. You can't do it in Los Angeles. You can't do it in Texas, and there's all other places. So like logistics is maybe the only real issue I think that we have to deal with. But like culturally, I think it's 100% just the fact that we're not willing to do what's required. Like we're waiting. We're always waiting for, something's gonna come and say the FGC is this or that, or some external force is gonna come back around and put it the way that it ought to be, and that's not how it's gonna work. Like you got to just take things into your own hands, and it's whatever you're talking about, like kind of the history, like where there's like the drop off. I think the drop off started with like Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII, and like Ocarina of Time, because that's whenever games started going more towards like a cinematic experience, and away from this kind of like more direct, I think, involvement with like other players. to this sort of like almost masturbatory, like, oh, this is about me and my story, and that's really the issue to kind of like start to deconstruct, is how people get lost in their own like immersion of their own like escape of their own player expression of their own creativity or this or that, and none of that shit really matters because there's no actual connection from you to the other person, maybe on some level from the developer to you, but not really in like a shared sense with like the people around you. And I feel like it's those kind of moments where you take like a moment 37 from like Evo. It's like it's the shared moments there, and I feel like that moment did a lot with like Street Fighter 4. It's like keep people like bring people back in, and I also think like, oh, it's Marvel baby, like did as well. But at that point, it's also sort of like people are imitating the imitation so many times that it becomes engagement with content rather than people. And it's the like that lack of like an actual connection to like people, I think, is the crux of the issue. And it's this idea of like, oh, we need like this external thing to fix it, whenever we have everything that we need to look at the problems and be like, oh, you know what, it's not like there's a different set of problems here than there is over there. They're very similar. It's just we have to look at how these problems can actually be taken from where they're at to a more workable solution where like you facilitate and bridge the connections that the younger generation is not going to want to do. They're not going to know how either, and they're going to be indignant, and they're going to be willful, and they're going to try to be the main character, and they're going to, oh, you're gaslighting me, and they're going to throw this fucking TikTok pseudo psychology bullshit at you. But you got to just stand firm and let them like fail on their own terms until they come back, after giving up, after being upset, after being fussy, and they've gotten that out of their system. And some part of that is just antagonizing people and just letting it go. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we deal with the same problems. I just think part of it is the mentality of hopelessness in a way. And if you are going to be hopeless, then recognize that you can't count on anything but yourself to fix the problem.
No, they're going to keep bothering and blaming it on the developers. If the developers just put this feature in, if they just put a cinematic storyline in this fighting game, it's going to captivate.
Yeah.
It's going to captivate the cattle to really get into fighting games and actually like get good at something. No, like you don't
Oh
get
yeah,
it.
if they put Alex as DLC in, I'll definitely pick up the game this time. No, you fucking won't.
No, it's not just about Alex. It's about like no, they need a cinematic experience. That's what they're doing with
Yeah.
Virtua Fighter 6, which I'm not gonna knock that. I think that's just a reaction to um it's not a reaction to like single player demand in general. It is just hopefully just Sega doing something different. It is Dragon Studios, whatever the studio is that makes Yakuza. Like that is what they
RGG.
yeah, like that is what they do. So of course their game is going to be like that. And they've said that it's not the main focus, not a Virtua Fighter player. I don't care. But it's like I don't think that's gonna bring like people in. This is what I'm talking about when I say fighting game players live in a bubble. It's like no, like we need this feature. Like no, fighting games need to be free on release and a live service game. And it's like, oh yeah, 2XKO did that, but no, it has to be like some other game to do that. It's not no 2XKO isn't good enough. It has to be something else.
We need a developer with more money than Riot Games. Yeah. I do want to touch on.
They definitely needed better developers for that, but that's a different story.
Yeah, I do want to touch on one thing because I think there was a real intersection at one point between the developer side of supporting the game and not setting them up for failure outside of Japan and player demand abroad. And that's rollback netcode, because that really was like the last major like infrastructural problem that the rest of the world had, basically, that Japan did not, right? Japan did not need to rely on online play the way other regions did. And now that we have it in most games, and it's usually like pretty serviceable at a minimum, That actually is changing the culture here too, right? And some people aren't happy about it. Some people are like, man, the locals are dying in my area, but it's like, you have to still give people a reason to show up too, right? And on that front, I absolutely agree. Like, that is on the community, full stop. Like, that is on the people running events. You know, if you're going to fucking have games on 60 hertz monitors playing on console when people get actually better quality games at home, like, you know, what reason do they have to show up? You know, like, if they just want to play some games and they're not overly invested in the social aspect, which,
by the way, I will say this is a recent development too, where it's like, when Street Fighter 4 came out and before, nobody was like, man, how can we get more people to play these games? It was just like, well, I guess 8-man locals it is. You know?
I mean, I don't know, because I feel like with SF4, there were definitely very, very high expectations for what that game was going to do for the community, and I think they were about halfway met.
I think it's hard. Like, I think things have changed so much in terms of scale that it's hard for us to like keep in perspective, like how much of an impact it did or didn't have, like relative to like the modern day. But that's just my 2 cents. It's not that important.
Well, I'm actually glad you brought that up, though, because the argument I've used over the years, right, is when SF4 came out, what were the most popular multiplayer games, right? First-person shooters, RTS. You're right. You can go down the list, and fighting games you don't even start to think about until about, what, 10 or 15? No, not at that point. Not at that point. Not back then. Tekken was actually kind of on life support for a good while there.
Tekken 6 was doing okay.
It
like,
did.
relative to other.
It did very well in Japan in arcades. Yes, if you go to the Arcadia charts, that's objectively true. It actually did not do very well on console, especially when it first launched. It actually almost killed Tekken. But my point is, fighting.
I guess like, sorry.
Fighting games just had a very small slice of the pie, even at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go fast forward to today, and the only fighting game besides Brawlhalla, we don't count that, of course, right? The only fighting game that is consistently within the top 200 games on Steam is Street Fighter 6. It's the only one, right? Which is good. It means that SF6 is doing something that's working, right? And I think now Capcom has a better idea of what that actually is, because they've had a couple years to figure it out. But again, what are the most popular games in the world right now? FPS, Battle Royale, MOBA. You know, you go down the list and you don't even hit fighting games until about the number 10 spot, right? The scale has increased a lot of just how many people play games in the world, but where fighting games stand in that pecking order really hasn't. If anything, it might proportionally be a little bit smaller than it used to be. And that's in spite of having more people, like, you know, gross.
But I think the scale of gaming has just changed completely. Look at like fighting game tournaments before and compared to now. It's like now they're cons. Like, you know, last week you had Jaron here being like, "Oh, is a tournament supposed to cost $125?" And it's like, God forbid, man. Like, of course not. But that's where they are now. So it's like, it's just like lateral growth. It's like, is this like growth good for who? You know what I mean? Like, it's like getting bigger. It's like gaming in general has gone bigger, like entertainment. Like Call of Duty makes money from selling like Rick and Morty skins.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that because fighting games operate on such a, like, you just have to say it, it's like an outdated developer mentality, right? They don't really come to things on the cutting edge generally with these games. Fighting games are always stuck fighting the last battle. They're always catching up to where the rest of gaming currently is. And then once they get there, most of the time, it's not enough to keep more than a dedicated audience of players of, you know, maybe a few thousand if you're really lucky, right? With 6, again, we've blown that out of the water. We have tens of thousands. I think sometimes it even touches 100,000 concurrent players. Like, it does pretty damn well. It's just,
I actually think that's fine. Like, I think it's fine to separate like the players from the consumers.
I think
Whereas,
so
like,
too. I think we need to do more of that, to be honest with you. I do.
yeah,
I just think that we also need to be honest about where these games really stand in the grand scheme of things. Because if you want to talk about how fighting game
certainly.
players live in a bubble, like who actually gives a fuck about Evo? Like outside of the FGC or outside of the people who watch Evo, which is like,
It's actually really prestigious in Japan.
right. But that's what I'm saying is like, if you don't already have a connection to fighting games, what is your investment in Evo? Right? You could
No, I'm
go.
saying like people in other countries will just like understand like without a connection to fighting games, with zero connection to fighting games. They're like, oh, evil's going there. Like, there's a level of like esteem that's still applied to it, I would say. Like from people who know nothing about fighting games, they're just like vaguely impressed by it. But yeah, I feel like the esports dynamic is completely flipped in Japan. So it's like people who play first-person shooters, they're on the lowest rung of like, oh, you play League or you play like, Call of Duty, you're a fucking scrub. But these old dudes who play like, Street Fighter and Tekken, oh man, those are the gamer gods. Like, but that's the reality of it. Is there is almost I think like a hero worship almost with like certain fighting game players. I don't think that culture exists here.
It
But I
does,
think
just not for fighting games. It's just like for every other genre,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, that is true. That is definitely true that it exists for other genres. Like, I mean, it kind of even
I
exists
didn't
for
mean it
Smash.
specifically for fighting games.
It exists for Smash at least for sure. Like Mango can get away with anything, man. You cannot
Yeah,
put that man in prison.
I really meant that like more with like fighting games, what they lack, and I agree with you otherwise. So no refutation, just I think that I think it's a crab in a bucket mentality. People don't understand they can get paid together. They want to be the only ones
Oh
that get
yeah,
paid.
yeah.
That is true. That is absolutely true. Here in the U.S., especially, that's absolutely true.
Yeah,
Well, there is like I don't know if I could even talk about it, but there are like some fighting game players, like old top players. Well, I don't want to say old and date myself. Older fighting game players that they do look after each other and they have gotten each other comfortable jobs. I'm not talking about a certain development team. I'm talking about something else entirely different. Uh, lightly regarded, lightly uh, related to gaming, even. So there is that at least. Top players definitely, I think, look after each other to some degree here.
yeah, with a degree of insularity.
Well, good for them. I mean, it's a club and you have to be in it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not knocking it per se. I just, I think it can be replicated.
Yeah, people should be doing that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people have just gotten lazy, and I don't know. I don't really see like younger generations stepping up.
They won't.
Well, that's something I've wondered about for a while too. Is like, really and truly, do fighting games die with millennials? Like, I feel like that might
I don't
just
think so at
happen.
all.
No, you don't think
No,
so?
no, no. I looked at the tournament yesterday. What is it? The whatever the like the anime tournament they have at next level, like for
Hmm.
Melty Blood and all that, and um everybody there is like super young. I'm like, wow, holy shit. If I went there, I would not good.
No. And I know there's younger players. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I think kind of to the point we've been circling, it's like, do they really have it in them to like step up and like become like the institution that the community is, or are they just gonna like, you
Nobody
know?
becomes that autonomously. They become that because people take them in and they look after them. And there's also a degree of isolation where they have to deal with their own shit on their own way, in their own time with no like assistance. And there's kind of this dichotomy between people who are giving you kind of their wisdom and experience. Like for me, Street Fighter 5, it was Jason Cole, Afro Cole was very influential for like kind of me getting where I needed to be. But it was like somebody going out of their way to kind of like take on the burden of helping me really like address maybe like things that I didn't have the language for to really like work through mentally, and then connect that to fighting games, and then just let go of, I guess, the anxiety or the need to kind of keep up. Like you're saying, oh, like fighting games are fighting last battle and they need to keep up. It's like give up on that entirely. That notion that you need to keep up and just say fuck it. And I think people don't become the people that they need to be on their own. I think that is 100% a myth. It is people look out for each other and they lift each other up. And it's like, okay, I've burdened through, like, I've endeavored through this, and I'm going to cut down the amount of time you're going to waste just, beating your head against the wall as much as I can, because I can only show you, where the door is. I can't push you through it. I can walk through it. I can show you, it's safe. But if you're terrified and you're going to sit in the corner, I can't help you. And like, yeah, it takes a lot of coaxing. It takes a lot of support.
So Nietzsche actually spoke about this when he said, "Become who you are." I've never actually read Nietzsche, so
I was about to say he actually didn't say that. You just saw that in the meme.
no, he did say that. That was one of his core tenets. But yeah, people, they do need somebody to kind of take them under their wing and be like, here's how things go now. It's up to you.
I guess I'm coming at it from a little bit of a different approach. Like I agree broadly with what's been said, but I feel like with the younger players, I feel like because of just like gaming has just kind of changed in its like capacity for them, I think, in that like gaming is just like a social activity full stop for them now. And even if they have a community of friends that play fighting games in their age group, I mean, ultimately that's still like a minority, among that demographic. And I think that just works against these games long term.
Well, and you also, I would say you have to look at it with like this specific question, which is, are they doing well in other places in their life? Or do you see the exact same deficits of like being way too concerned with themselves and not really actually like connecting with each other? And I would say you probably do see that. And then that would also like lead me to the question of, whenever we were coming up, whenever we were younger, were we like specifically much better? I'm not sure. I feel like in some ways yes, in some ways no. But I don't think it's a clean answer either way.
I think we
And
were much, much worse about this back then. It was like full stop. Like if you weren't in the circle, you were definitely out of it. I say this as someone.
That's definitely true.
I say this as someone who like tried. I tried to play Capcom fighting games in the Bay Area, the birthplace of Evo, and you have the stories I could tell you, and you wouldn't believe about how hard it was just to like get in the same room as people who played those games. Like incredibly gatekeepy, incredibly clicky. At the same time, they're bitching and complaining that no one's joining the community, right?
yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
So
like
I want to point this out for like the newer generation. They're lucky now where it is not as insular. You will have way more people on a lower and moderate skill level to play with, to actually kind of like build yourself up to get to like some kind of tournament level at least. Not the
I agree.
case like pre tens,
yes, absolutely.
In the aughts, it was like, keep fucking spending them tokens, man. Good luck.
Like my pipeline with Marvel 2 back then was I would play it after school at my friend's place with my group of friends that played games. And then eventually I became the best player there and they all stopped having fun. So I was like, okay, well, where do people play Marvel 2? And it's like, I guess there's some arcades in the area. All right. I remember one day I went to the Sony Metreon, which you want to talk about back when Sony went hard. They had their own shopping center, everything Sony branded. It had an arcade and everything. It was super cool. They had an arcade there. I went. It was like a cocktail. It was weird. It was like a head-to-head cocktail cabinet. So like the game was just like waist level, and you had to, look down in order to play it. And it was two screens. But I walk up to this cabinet. I just start playing and wait for someone to come by. I'm not even kidding you. This guy comes by in a fucking wife beater with a blue bandana, picks Team Scrub, and just completely fucks me up. And I'm just like, I guess this is how Marvel 2 is played, right? Like I literally went from 0 to 100 just like that.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Chinatown, like in its prime?
No, what was it called?
Chinatown Fair.
Chinatown
Oh no,
Fair.
I'm West Coast, so I never went out there.
No, he's.
I
Oh,
went
right, right, right.
2009.
I'll definitely get like a CF old head to talk about that at some point. But let's see.
Yeah, that would be good.
Let's see. Some other ways fighting game players are in a bubble. Something funny I always see is when there's something Street Fighter related, such as the new movie, for example, is when they say, "Oh, how come it's only the Street Fighter 2 characters?" Super
Yeah.
fucking hilarious to me.
Yeah, no,
It's
I
like
agree.
it's like, hey, how come Mortal Kombat is always Scorpion and Sub Zero? How come GI Joe is always GI Joe and Cobra Commander? I guess that's like really dated. I don't know why I said that. Really embarrassing millennial faggotry on my part.
No, I
But
mean,
you know what I mean.
I said it earlier, man. Like Street Fighter started the '90s, like the third highest grossing video game of all time, and it ended the '90s like in the bargain bin. There was a precipitous drop off over the course of that decade in terms of the popularity, and so of course, the game that most people are going to remember is going to be the one that took the world by storm. You know, a lot of people to this day probably still don't even know that there was a Street Fighter 3, let alone a 4 or a 5 or a 6. Like that's the level of disconnection that like these games have to contend with. You know, like that's just something, how we got there, whether we allowed it to happen or it happened to us. We can talk about that all day, but ultimately that's where we're at, and it's where we've been at for some time now.
Okay. Something else I want to mention, and I talked about this with somebody drunk conversation once. I forget which Evo this was, but they specifically dropped. They had those old intros for games, if you remember, and I think
Yes,
James
yes.
Chen used to make them all. Actually, really good job there. And he made one year that was like third strike is like chess, and I think this was like some like random thing like Li Joe said in passing or something, and then like it became like an ongoing meme, right? Third strike is like chess, and like I remember just mocking it brutally that year. And the friend I was joking about it with was like obviously an avid third strike player. Why else would I say it besides trolling him? So we're both super fucking drunk, and he's like, "Wait, no, but like it is like chess, because like you have to think about your next move, and then you have to think about your opponent's response to that move, and then your opponent has to think about your response to their response." And I'm just like, dude, you know what? That's like any game with any modicum of like any difficulty or anything that's like played competitively at all, man. Even like fucking rock, paper, scissors has that level. Like, are you fucking serious? Like, only third strike and chess are like that? Get your head out of your fucking ass, man. Fighting game players really do think like their games are super fucking difficult too when you have, like really young people qualifying in games that, like forever real champions, are playing in.
And like, I don't want to change topics too much here, but something that has just really killed me for a while now. I can't think of another genre where the player base just actively looks for ways to bypass the mechanical challenges of the games, right? People will buy a mix box with 30 macro buttons before they learn how to just like actually do motion inputs correctly in a game, right?
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about, but go on.
There's a few people, but like my point is like they go on and on about how these games are so hard, this and that, whatever, and how like I guess in their mind like they have to do this in order to be good at the game. But then the moment a game like Avatar comes along that actually tries to make things like genuinely difficult to a degree, all they do is bitch and complain, right? And I bring this up because by contrast, you look at like the FPS community, for example, they go crazy with mice, right? They have mice with like insane sensors that will track any slightest bit of movement. There's mice now that do like negative edge clicks. They don't click when you press down, they click when you release. Like there's all this crazy stuff, but like as soon as a game adds auto aim, people bitch and complain about it. And they go, what are you doing? You're ruining the game. You're making it too easy. You're making it so that people can play controller now and shit on us. And like, I think they have it right. And I think the FGC has it wrong. Like, if you're like, I understand there's going to be a mechanical arms race in a multiplayer game for sure. But like, I feel like we kind of want it both ways. We want the games to be easier. And like, we also want to like be like justified in, you know, inventing these weird input schemes for games that like actually just don't justify them, you know, like, and then when games start to move in that direction, we bitch and moan about it.
I do notice that. I agree with that too. Like, I noticed that every time the FGC wants a game to function this way, they get it, and then they start bitching immediately.
I definitely allowed them to speak, and then they left. So
Who?
I don't know, Cinnabon. I definitely there is some delay on it. Twitter Spaces isn't the best for it, but it's okay.
But yeah, I've never seen a community talk out of both sides of its mouth regarding difficulty like that to the degree that the FGC does. Like, I can't think of another genre where that's like normalized.
I mean, I think it really just depends on who you talk to in like any genre or any game, because it's like I think you kind of get similar stuff with like people who play like Elder Scrolls games. It's like there's certainly the vocal people are like, oh yeah, this is definitely like yada yada. But then you got like all the people are like, oh, I want to play this game, but I can't do it because you know the game's too hard. I want an easy mode. I want this or that, and like that entire discourse.
Well, the
I,
difference with the fighting game community is that they will like try so hard to accommodate the people that have those excuses, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah, no, I get you, and that's not really like what resolves the question. But at the same time, like if you're given like you know listen to fan feedback or something, it's like you got to work with what you got. But yeah, like I remember Street Fighter Five, because you know that game basically like changed combos down to just like you know at max it's like jump in, button special, that's it. And you know, oh, like this game's too easy, this game's too easy, you know, I need more like you know complex mechanics and stuff like that. Then Monot comes out, and you know, of course, instead of people playing Monot, what happens is, oh, this character's too like mechanically difficult, why can't she be easier, why can't she can't you know this or that, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I feel like even in games where it's like they accommodate, like you got like a range where you can play like a difficult character if you want to play a difficult character, and you can play like an easy character if you want to play an easy character. You know, people still aren't gonna want to put in the work. They're infatuated with the idea of a version of themselves that has the discipline to put in the work. And rather than trying to put in the work to produce that result, they want to pay like a fee, download some DLC, basically get some cheats, and then suddenly you know lock in and be the guy. And you know it always kind of feels like they treat it like it's fucking like stat bars, like exp bars in World of Warcraft, not like you know I'm actually practicing to improve in a dynamic sense.
Oh,
It's
remember the classic like, oh, I have like 150 hours in ST. Why am I losing to you?
oh 150.
So
It's a inside joke.
yeah, I agree with what you've laid out there, but I'll tell you why nobody played Monot in SF5. It's because that is the exact opposite way you address this problem correctly. Because what you should do is you should make a game with a baseline level of mechanical difficulty, and then introduce characters that allow certain parts of that to be subverted. So that way people can kind of pick the type of challenge that they want out of the game versus here's a game where like, you know, 80% of the cast gets away with just like you said, freaking normal special, normal EX, right? But now you have a real ass character in that game, and it's like, unless this character offers something that is just like so otherworldly good that you just cannot get anywhere else, of course no one's gonna play her. you know, because it's too much squeeze for not enough juice.
Well, I also feel like there's an element of it where they're just dishonest about what they actually want.
Well, yes, of course. And stated versus revealed preference is like a recurring theme with the FGC, like full stop. Like that's people say shit all the time they don't actually mean about these games.
Yes, thank you.
People talk like it's video game journalism. Like they talk like a game review. They use game review language to talk about strategy.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
always self-aggrandizing. It's always, you know, oh, well, it feels really satisfying to land these combos. It's like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, you read that in like a fucking game review. Like, that
Well,
doesn't...
hold on. You know, you can't expect the FGC to be good with words, man. They're just good at pressing buttons. Remember, we only reward good button pressing. Remember, everybody that's supposed to be canceled, they're like not canceled because they're really good at pressing buttons, or at least like they harped on this. Yeah, so I hear. Any before we move on, any other way these just these ingrates,
they're gooners.
These gooners, these maroons, just are so clueless. Can anybody else mention some other ways? Of course, I could go on, but I just want to hear from you guys.
You know, I could give the usual spiel about consumerism, but
I just think in general, it's pretty clear that the FGC has pretty low standards for a lot of things across the board. And we're kind of just willing to take the scraps from the table. And there is kind of a weird, and this isn't like the whole community. I'm not going to say this is like every community for every game, but there is more of like a weird cultish approach to developer interactions in some parts of the FGC under Night. Where like the developer can just do no wrong, and like who cares if the game launches and it crashes when you alt tab, or the netcode sucks, or any other reason why this game is like just miserable to sit down and play. We have to support it because we have to support the developer. It's just, I think it's a bigger problem with the smaller games, the games with the more tight knit communities, but to a certain degree, I even think it's kind of true with Street Fighter. I think now with 6, it's big enough that it doesn't really matter. Like that's not really like a factor at this point. But like, I do think there has historically kind of been a level of like, yeah, well, we may not like the game, or like it might be 8 frames of input lag or whatever, but like it's Street Fighter, bro. Like it's Capcom, bro. Like you gotta just like, go with the flow on it. And it's like, I don't see that as much in other genres. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. If you can think of like a scathing counter example, I'll listen. But like, I just don't see that in other games, not to this extent.
Well, let's talk about some other games that I think fighting games are in an okay spot right now. It's like whatever. It was pretty bad. Like SF6 was it was fine. Then I guess people got tired of it. Then like Strive came out. I think it's fine now. People are kind of like getting around playing old games again. They're coming back to them. Like I see the sentiment going around. I actually did ask in a bunch of servers. I was like not really active in. I'm like, oh, so like, what are you guys playing? What are you guys like interested in playing? And they're like, they're naming games that aren't out yet. So you definitely have people that just like wait for a release cycle for fighting games. This is like just a miserable, just a pathetic, miserable existence where it's like, I just need my fix. I need my latest fix. I mean, like there's some players where it's like, they're just like day one, week one gods, right? They're like, no, like I have no job, so I'm just gonna like play this game nonstop, find the tech, and like win the first tournament. And then like 1 year later, it's like people are gonna put up missing posters for me because I'm gonna be nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
We all know. We all know. We all know players like that. I'm not
Yes.
gonna mention anybody.
Yes, no, they do exist.
So, I think they're fine. They're in an okay spot. Bunch of titles coming out. I think some people are waking up. Let's talk about some games, some genres that aren't really doing so hot. I think the biggest example is FPS, because I mean, I guess they're like so spiritually raped. Like, what even is Call of Duty?
Okay. So I use FPS a lot when I like compare the fighting game community to other communities, because I think the FPS community is basically what a lot of people want the fighting game community to be in terms of resilience, in terms of cultural capital. I think people want that, but for fighting games. And like, I think that's really what a lot of people really want. And I also see in FPS like a genre that has, I think, kind of a similar trajectory culturally as fighting games, but on a regional basis. So we always wrap around back to Japan. I think Japan basically had the ideal fighting game environment from day one, or maybe a little bit after that, because there is actually some history in how they didn't think SF2 would do well over there, but we're not going to get into that right now. But like FPS has that here, right? It has the historical, cultural backing that like, no matter what happens, FPS are going to do well, no matter what. Like, it's just different degrees of well. That being said, I definitely do not agree that FPS are in a worse spot than fighting games. Even if
They're not in a worse spot. I mean,
Look at
like
Counter-Strike 2 right now.
like quality wise, they're definitely. I mean, it's like arguable, but in terms of how they work, in terms of I guess sales, cultural relevance, of course not.
Well,
But
here's another problem with that too, right? Is that FPS can mean very different things. So when I compare FPS to fighting games, I focus primarily on the multiplayer side of the genre. Like right now with the Halo remake, sure, FPS are doing worse than fighting games if you measure it based off of that, right? Like I would agree with that, because that is some dire shit. But like, that's not the whole genre, and that's not even the part of the genre really that matters most, if we're being honest. Like in this day and age, the single player campaign FPS
no,
gamer
yeah,
is like,
honestly, ever since like what the Nintendo 64 came out and like made that kind of a multiplayer aspect just like so accessible,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of been what has kept that genre around for all these years. And just look at the most popular games in the genre, and that tells the whole story for you, really.
Well, I think it's a lot easier to commoditize, because it's like you can get, like you're talking about, like those new mice and stuff like that. You can always like basically improve something by like a fraction of like percent, and then mark it up as, oh, you have the competitive advantage if you buy this product or that product.
Yeah,
Whereas with fighting games, I don't really think that exists. But then at the same time, like you mentioned before, it's like you have these people where they're going to treat it like, oh, like before I'm going to learn how to do a shuriken, first I got to get this hitbox with all these buttons and blah blah blah. And it's, yeah, I think it's acting on the same impulse, you know being a consumer rather than actually trying to earn the skill.
yeah. No,
And
no, absolutely.
yeah, I think with FPS, there's kind of more of a reality from like a hardware perspective that it's easier for them to like hawk products. And whatever you say, like people want it to be like FPS. It's not per se like I disagree, but I do think it's a bit of a monkey's paw where people get what they want. They're gonna be like, did I really want this?
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's been kind of a misguided sentiment for a long time. But I also just have to call it as I see it. Like, I mean, back in what, 2005 or 6, Evo had MLG there, right? Like they experimented, they tried to get in with that, and it didn't work out. But like, I feel like it's kind of been on people's minds for a long time now. In this,
Well, it's like I remember, like I did the E League show, and the E League show was, it was fine, but everybody just had like this big, huge issue with like Richard Lewis and like tweeting out about how he's this and that and bad and blah blah. And it's like the dude's honestly not doing anything like lash out at the fighting game community, but it was super obvious they just treated it as like this invasion of like the cishet white man, coming to colonize our, whatever. And I don't know.
I think that was just the reaction to esports. People were like, "Oh no, they're gonna like make us not be able to say faggot, and they're gonna make us have to like wear nice dress shirts, and we're gonna have to wear team uniforms, and we can't wear fitted caps anymore."
Now the person who was most outspoken about it was Ultra David, that I remember. So it definitely wasn't to like enshrine saying slurs, but yeah, I think both. You're not wrong. I'm just describing like specifically like a different incident, and I think they both exist kind of in contrast to each other. But it's both sides aren't really getting what they want.
Yes, yes, that is absolutely true. We have managed to hit the worst intersection of grassroots and corporately subsidized gaming. Like we are absolutely in the worst spot for that. Like all of the downsides of both.
How many more years in the Kali Yuga cycle do we have? Yeah. I guess like we're gonna have to see where it pulls next. I don't know. I think it's just gonna be stuck like this for some time.
Yeah.
It's gonna be stuck like this, but if you're wondering if you should still play fighting games, short answer is probably like yes, if like it makes sense for you in the sense that like you have an immediate local community. If you're just playing online, then it's like don't waste your time. I can't harp on that enough. You're gonna miss out on like a proper experience. There's like no other genre where you could just fucking show up.
Yeah, I mean, and that's bad.
Except like rhythm games, but
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about genres of games that probably have it worse than fighting games? I can think of one that I think proportionally has had a bigger drop off than fighting games, even though it still beats it in terms of gross player count. That's real-time strategy. Real-time strategy. Yeah. I think the last time I looked on Steam charts, and I understand, Blizzard genre and Steam charts isn't going to completely map that out, but I do remember the only RTS I saw in the top 200 on Steam charts the last time I checked was Age of Empires 2, which like, legendary game. It's just like, holy shit, that's really it. Like, that's really it. It's like that and like StarCraft, and maybe some people still play Warcraft 3. I don't know, but like
people do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure someone does, right? I'm sure there is a community for it still. But there's like
a European community. Go on.
Yeah. But like for a genre that at one point was like pretty clearly on top of the world. I mean, it was like pretty
its own TV channel.
Pretty popping for a good while. Yeah. It's really done now. I think that's over and done with.
Look at
Followed up by MOBA.
Look at this tweet I posted on the Jumbotron, by the way. Like briefly interact with it and like move on, just like laugh at it and move on. I don't want to give it the time of day. I'm pretty sure they're joking. I hope so.
I don't think I can see it, but
here, I'll read it for you. Once you educate yourself on black histories within the arcade and fighting game community, you'll never want to stop beating RTS to death with your bare hands. Because yeah, I mean, everybody definitely dropped arcade games for RTS. That is definitely what happened. White people came and they forced, like Koreans came actually and forced everybody to play RTS games.
No, Tekken 4 dropped and forced Koreans to play RTS. That's what happened. But yeah, I mean, some people just like inventing new sentences that have never been said before, and I think that's a prime example of that.
This is a great site. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Other genres that have it worse than fighting games. I mean, we're really digging the bottom of the barrel now. beat 'em ups. But I mean, is that even worth discussing at
Beat-em-ups are
this
actually
point?
doing pretty good. They're actually doing pretty good right now. But
I mean, relatively to where they've been for like the past 15 years, yes. But I mean, they still got a ways to go before they hit, like, I would say, any substantial cultural relevancy outside of their own sphere. I mean,
You still there?
did you get cut off?
Yeah, what's up?
So I'll say this. Yeah, beat 'em ups are kind of doing okay. In the sense that like some of the indie ones are pretty well received. I don't think all of them are like have been that fun.
Yeah, I think
Juno, if you're there.
Yeah.
Okay.
This UI sucks ass.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
what other genres are doing worse. It's hard because like even other like arcade genres are actually doing pretty decent right now. Rhythm games are actually doing pretty well. Freaking arcade racing games are even doing okay. Like it's hard to think of another genre in the arcades that has managed to stick around that's doing worse than fighting games right now. I think fighting games are damn near the bottom.
Another point for about FPS. I think FPS only got stronger, and it's not just because of the competitive factor, like CS2 and everything, but like the single player FPS are very popular as well.
Yeah. Quash, you probably got to reconnect and damn. Well, we're almost done. I guess no other genre has it worse than fighting games. I guess that's it.
I think MMOs kind of suck at this point.
Oh yeah.
Like especially like the paid to play model.
Is there anything that's still pay to play? Is
Like
F-
WoW
F-
and
I thought
FF14?
WoW wasn't WoW.
yeah, like all the like standard MMOs more or less are still pay to play. And then you got to get like, you know, expansion on top of it and blah blah blah. It's like 14 really nickels and dimes you. I don't know about WoW so much. I know they've got like some kind of token where you can buy it with like in-game currency, but then that just means like, you know, you're kind of making like a weird crypto grift inside the game with like pay to play tokens.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like the RuneScape. Whatever. There's like some currency you could farm to like bypass the to get RuneScape Premium or whatever. Well, I guess let's wrap this up. I'll tell you another genre that is making a resurgence and is actually like peak Americana. It's coming back. Oh yeah, Quash is definitely here. Peak Americana, and it's all right. It's let's get some people talking here.
Basically stop gold farmers. It's like half effective, right? They still farm gold, right? Because you can spend your gold in game to get like a month or something. So that's what people do.
Yeah, it's weird.
Also, I'll say if you play driving simulation games, most of the best games are like 10 years old or they're like 20 years old but still get updates, right? And there's a game called iRacing, which is considered like the best, but uh, so to play that game properly, need like a $700 wheel. You need to buy the game. You need to buy the subscription, and you need to buy the tracks. And you need to buy the cars. Right? Kind of crazy. But there's some cheaper options in that genre, so it's fine.
Looks like I'm back.
What's up?
Kind of on that note, I did a little bit of research recently on sports games and football games, specifically like NFL. It's actually kind of crazy that even today, like there seems to be a pretty clear consensus that the best football games were all made like 20 years ago. Like even like there's like a clip of Snoop Dogg playing the latest Madden, and he was like, Madden hasn't been good in like 20 fucking years, and I'm still buying it and playing it every year. And yeah, I think there's just a real aspect that people just want to play the latest game, and even if they know it's not going to be good.
It's the latest game. It's got the best graphics.
Yeah.
It's got the best graphics, man. Well, fighting games used to be all about graphics, actually. And that is something they are severely lacking in, which, again, I'm not, like, pro Virtua Fighter at all. Like, I'm actually I'm staunchly anti-Sega. It's like, fuck Sega, right? But Virtua Fighter actually does look like an impressive game, like, visually.
Yeah.
What about
Which is,
Spiker?
like, that's where we have to get to, again, for these games to kind of be, like, culturally relevant.
I agree. And I think the last true effort towards that was Arxis with Exerd, and it wasn't in the same way. It wasn't like they were like pushing technology to the brink or anything like that. But they were just using pre-existing tools in a really clever way that no one else had really done, with a pretty good end result. You know, I think Exerd's still one of their best looking games even now.
Yeah, and you know what Exerd reminds me of? When Jet Set Radio came out, and like I learned about what cell shading is, I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, oh, why aren't there more games like this? And then it's like, wait, why is everything like so gray? Why is everything so brown? And it's like, what happened? Did they like forget how to do this? And it's like, clearly not. It's obviously always a design choice. Don't ever let people convince you that devs don't know how to do anything anymore.
Well, I feel like Sega's big thing also is like they still are pretty active with like arcade cabinets. So a lot of the games tend to be good music, very oversaturated colors, yada yada yada.
Which,
Yeah.
by the way, that wasn't even just like a Japanese thing. American developers, I think even like American developers knew this, because what was Killer Instinct known for? It was known for being loud as fuck. If you went to an arcade with Killer Instinct, you heard that cabinet across the room.
And Cruisin' USA, Cruisin' World, very colorful games.
Hell yeah.
Very colorful.
You know, and that's like, are fighting games colorful now? Like, I guess. Are they like,
Tokon is.
are they good looking? I mean, maybe. Are they loud? They're whatever. Is the music good? Definitely not.
How the hell did Arxis mess up music? Like, of all the things for them to drop the ball on, you'd think that'd be the one thing that they would hold on to.
Daisuke Shibutari just carries the musical design. If he's not on it, then.
But he is on it.
No,
Yeah, I
that's the
guess he is
problem.
on-
Yeah.
I guess he's on like Strive.
But Doctor, I am Daisuke Ishiwatari.
You know, I guess like the issue is like whenever he started doing vocals, right?
I think that was the first like audible, I was going to say visible, audible sign of decline was when there were vocals in Guilty Gear for real, and not like the one-off CD. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
I feel like he just started like feeling himself too much, and he's like, you know what, fuck it, like, I don't need to even like run this by like somebody who actually speaks English, like, fuck it.
So like I joked like 6 or 7 years ago now that Strive was Daisuke's Sane Anger era. And I've actually seen people make that joke independently, like once a year since then. Like it's so obvious. It's like, this is fucking Lars loosening up the snare for no reason and just making awful music with stupid music videos just because you can. Like, that's just the point that Arxis has been at for a while now.
Yeah, so
I just
we're kind of coming up on the 2 hour mark. Anybody have anything else to conclude? I have a point I didn't get to finish earlier, which is talking about a genre that is coming back in a big way, and it is entirely a piece of Americana, especially if you were,
Oregon Trail?
in the arcades. No, I am talking, of course, about pinball. Pinball is, they're putting out articles about this. I mean, when Godzilla came out, I knew pinball was back, but there's a lot of smaller companies now, actually, like making cabinets, making some of the best games. They're considered the best now, even by like you don't have that anymore, or like an older audience would be like, oh no, this is definitely like the best version. Like a new thing is the best version. That's never gonna happen. You wouldn't get that with like fighting games, right? You wouldn't get that with GRPGs. You wouldn't get that with FPS, obviously. You wouldn't get that with any kind of game. You wouldn't get that with any movie. But people who are heavily into pinball will definitely concede and say, yeah, Godzilla is one of the best. So go to your local barcade, play some new Transformers. Don't play the Pokemon game. It's not very good. I'm not a fan. Definitely play some of the old Williams games. Still the best.
Adam's Family, baby.
Yeah. Anybody got anything else?
That's very interesting. I was not expecting you to say pinball, but
Yeah, it's pinball. It's pinball.
I watched a movie on it. Like, they made a movie about the guy who made it. I don't know how accurate it is, but
All right, we have one question. What's the genre that most fighting games people would most likely enjoy, but is also popular nowadays?
I mean, every fighting game player just retires to FF14 or some
I was about
equivalent
to say
thereof.
that. Didn't they
Yeah.
refer that as like the FGC retirement home at some point?
Yeah, I mean,
it's
pretty much what it is.
It's a very poor joke.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
didn't
very
like it.
poor joke.
I feel like fighting game players should have a better appreciation for 3D action games than they do, but it's a
Yes.
different subject for another time.
Yeah.
I think something everybody that like used to play fighting games with, like they all did play some kind of arcade game. It's like while they were waiting. So
Yes.
they like, let me give you an example. Just to name drop this person. Chris G used to be like, he wasn't always a fighting game player. He played at CF and he was really good at Step Mania.
All right.
Yeah. So if you were an arcade player, you definitely had something else up your sleeve. I don't think many American FGC players are like playing shmups like that.
No, absolutely not.
Not many shmups in the arcades even.
Hmm.
But I mean, like, I am talking about like arcade heads, not like what new fighting game would they enjoy? I don't know. I don't think they would enjoy anything. I mean, well, KOF 15, I guess. And it kind of depends what era they're from, but definitely KOF 15. I'm just gonna like categorically just say KOF 15.
Not Garo?
Definitely not
No,
City
not
of the
City of the
Wolves.
Wolves. No,
It's a little too like modern modern influence. Like it has like the worst aspects of Street Fighter 6 influence.
I do agree, though. Ultimately, like the answer to this question, it depends on like the age group, because how you get into fighting games can be very different depending on the era and even the region. So I don't think there's really a clean answer to that necessarily.
Yeah. Well, think we hit the 2-hour mark just about.
Just about.
I don't want to just keep it going for no reason. So we're gonna have the actual first episode next week. I don't even know if we are gonna keep doing it on Spaces. You're just gonna have to listen to the recording and I don't know, figure a way out and just like DM me questions or responses or something. You know,
I do think Spaces is worth trying to stay on just because it does allow for a degree of audience participation, and I really do think that's like a standout aspect of this. It's
for
just,
sure. Yeah.
God, it
Spaces
fucking
suck
sucks. No, it sucks in every other way. Like,
Yeah, we've all each of us have disconnected. So, and I know
Yeah.
like I've seen the listeners drop in and out, disconnecting too. So, all right, well, what should be the outro song for this?
Ready to Die by Andrew WK.
No, it's got to be like a old head fighting game kind of track that I can't get like
Something from King of Fighters 2000.
That was the last one. I had the Cooler theme.
Oh,
That is like one of the best soundtracks. So whatever, I'll figure it out.
I like the Third Strike versus.
Well, I'll figure it out. And I'll see you guys next weekend, hopefully, or maybe sooner. Who knows?
Maybe.
Goodbye.
Take care.
Take care.